All right, hey everybody, TG here. Excuse me. So let's see, we are live in the Moxie room, in the central room, and out on the social medias. So we got YouTube, Facebook, and X. I will be broadcasting on YouTube, Facebook, and X for probably the next 20 minutes or so. Then we'll shut that down, and then I'll be with you guys just in the Moxie room and the central room. So yeah, good to see everybody this morning. We had John Carter on this morning. Sam, we just had him. So good to see you guys. Bruce, good to see all you in the chat, and same with Tim and Sabrina. So yeah, the patterns that we've been looking at are working out. Yeah, Never Chase, glad to see that you were working with the ES futures and the Moxie indicator work there. We did also get a signal on the S&P SPX 2-minute, so I'll show you that. So Eric, good to see you. Sunny, yeah, everyone's here. As Sam said, we do have Jerome Powell speaking in 2 hours. So 10:30 my time, and so that's about 2 hours from now. We obviously know that anything can happen, but so far what we are looking for has panned out. The comment that I made to the Moxie traders this morning was, but I always see this. It's like news and technicals kind of work in this sphere together, and a lot of times the market will set up technically, and then it's just looking for an excuse to move. And that's why we put on the call credit spread yesterday, because it looked to me like the market was running up into resistance. It was likely to pull back, the Moxie patterns, all this kind of stuff that I was looking for a pullback. And then we get the news that some more wasn't tariffs, but like restrictions for NVIDIA on some of their processors and servers or whatever they are, that they couldn't sell them certain places. And so that took NVIDIA down, which took the SMH down, which took NASDAQ down, which took the rest of the market down a little bit. So, but that being said, we were expecting this. I mean, this is why we put on basically a short trade yesterday, and then we got a little bit of a dip. So now where I'm at is, and Sam kind of left off with him saying, hey, we're kind of neutral. I would agree. And so that's why I'm like, is this all we're going to get? Or does Jerome Powell come out and say something and cause the markets to get a little bit heavier? Like, is he going to come out and be a little bit hawkish and be like, yeah, no, we're still not going to cut rates because, the market's still fine or the economy's still fine. And, we're just going to let the dust settle. And the market's like, oh, well, we kind of wanted you to say something else. And then maybe it gets a little bit heavy. Also, remember that tomorrow is basically Friday because the market's closed on Friday. So tomorrow is the last day of the trading week. And I'm just kind of speculating because I wonder, depending on where the market ends today, I think will kind of help determine what tomorrow feels like, and then who wants to have a position into the weekend. And is it the Bulls or the Bears? Which way? Now that's why granted, I do have a trade on that is expecting the market to pull back a little bit, but maybe that's everything we got today. Maybe the market has pulled back as far as it's going to go. I don't know. That's what we're going to have to kind of figure out when Jerome Powell starts speaking. So I might take off some of my position leading up to him speaking, just in case it gets a little bit crazy. Who knows? It could go up, and that would go against me. We're just kind of very neutral with this, and so I think that would be a good way to at least kind of cash them in, protect yourself, and then we can see where it goes. And if it goes in our favor, fantastic. And if it doesn't, then we get out, maybe break even if we have to scramble like that. So, and I know a bunch of you in the central room, you were messaging and in the chat that you already took some off this morning. That's great. I was still wondering if the market was a little bit heavier. And what I'm kind of seeing is if we look at the 15-minute time frame, you can see that morning gap down that we had, a little bit of a push, basically got the market a little too oversold. You can see how it started pulling away from the moving average. It got outside of the third ATR, and so it bounced. But if I were to look a little bit further out into the future, and unfortunately, the only wrinkle to my plan is that Powell is speaking today. But if he weren't speaking, and I said, okay, let me just let this play out, then most likely what I would be looking for and expecting is price. I'm willing to have price kind of come up to maybe the 21. And if it comes up to the 21 and then continues to roll over, I'd be okay with that, because I'm generally targeting the hourly 50 because that's typical patterns that I look for. So that's where I want to see if that can happen. If it takes another day to happen, great, better for us. If it doesn't do that, then we'll have to kind of plan something else. The SMH, The semiconductor ETF is already at the hourly 50. Nvidia is already at the hourly 50. So there are a lot of other things that have already reached their hourly 50s, and so that's why I'm wondering if can we get the S&P to come down and test its hourly 50. There's another situation where a lot of times when I look at this, and you guys know me, I like to use the 50 SMAs in order to have price, be guided someplace. And so I'd almost have to allow price to come up to the 15-minute 50 in order to figure out if we're bullish or bearish on that time frame. I don't think I really want to allow it to go that far because that would give back a lot of what we've already made so far. And we're only up like 20% on that call credit spread. It's better than a poke in the eye, but 20%, it's a starter. I was kind of hoping for 50, 60%, and we're definitely going to need a little bit more of a move in order for that to happen. And as I said, we kind of got that wrinkle of Powell speaking today. So I'm okay having this thing come up here, and then I want to see if we get a little bit weaker into the next 2 hours, and then I'll make a decision kind of before he says something and all that. And again, I think if he comes out a little bit hawkish or whatever, however the market kind of takes it, then it would be, at least for my patterns, maybe it's not great for the market, but as for the patterns, I think it'd be great if the S&P came down to the hourly 50 because, flip this around, I think ultimately that would be a pretty good buy point. So I'm short because I want the market to come down so that then I can buy it. So if you guys kind of see how I'm connecting all these dots, I know maybe it's like, oh man, why do you want the market to come down? Well, I want the market to come down because I don't want to buy it up here. And it's for exactly this reason. Let's get a little bit lower. Let's test support. Let's actually have it come back down here, test some levels. And then if it confirms, then I'll be happier about buying it down here. I don't want to buy it up here. And so that's why I'm like, okay, well, if I think the market's going to come down in order to buy it, to create a better buying opportunity, then maybe we should take a short trade. And we did. So I put my money where my mouth is on that one. Nice, Bruce. Yeah, let's see what else we got here. Right, Emil? Yeah, I'm sure the Feds know exactly what they're doing now. At this point, they definitely know what they're doing. Yeah, and then David, is this, I did hear, is Trump speaking later today, sometime after Jerome Powell? So yeah, I mean, look, it might be better to be kind of flat on some of these trades going into Powell or even Trump if they're going to be speaking, because we know both of those guys have the power to move the markets. And so this is one of those, that's part of the calculus that's going into my brain as far as, what do we want to do about this? Because yeah, we're already up about 20% in one day because we put on that trade yesterday, and we put on the trade right there yesterday. And now we're down here. And whether we go a little bit further, maybe it doesn't matter because there's so much uncertainty with Trump speaking and Powell speaking. So, hey, maybe we say, cool, made 20% overnight, and we just take it. So that's another thing. I'm not going to be too greedy here, but if we come down to the, say, 5-minute and the 2-minute, this is another reason that for now I'm willing to hang on to it, because all this is from this morning was basically an oversold bounce up into potential resistance. I'm looking at the 15-minute 21. I'm looking at the 5-minute 50. Those are still in downtrends. However, then I look at the internals. Okay, a little bit better now. The internals bounced. You can see that the ticks were looking pretty strong up here, and order flow definitely went positive. But this could just be people buying the dip. Bruce, I think I saw you put on a put credit spread this morning, so I'm sure you saw the double bottom right there. And then Eric, I think you were talking about, no, Never Chase, you were talking about the ES futures. Well, there's your Moxie price trigger right there on the 2-minute. So you probably saw that on the ES down low also. And then you can see here how it transitioned through the 2-minute 50 and popped up like that. So basically that is what the, say, call it oversold move this morning, a little bit stretched to the downside, and you got a bounce. So if you guys are futures traders or short-term traders or day traders and stuff like this, you see an opportunity like that and pop, great, take it. So I'm kind of looking at this for the bigger picture of what might happen today, and that's why I'm not getting chased out of my call credit spread yet, because I still have about 2 hours until Jerome Powell speaks, and so I'll see what the market does there. For now, it's just kind of a move up into what I think is resistance, and then I want to see if we start kind of fading a little bit. We'll see if the market gives any kind of clues as to what they think Jerome Powell is going to say, or how the market's going to react to Jerome Powell. So that's what I'm looking at and through here. Um, yeah, Eric, so 53.85. Yeah, I really don't want the SPX to get up to the 15-minute 50. If I see that it's going to start heading that way, I'm just going to get out, because while maybe I am right in the big picture that if price comes up to the 15-minute 50 and then rolls over like that, I just really don't want to have to handle that. I really, it was, given that this worked out today, I really kind of want to be out by Thursday, since that's the end of the week. I'm not, this is actually working faster and better than I was expecting it to. And so given that we already have a profit, given that it's already come down, and really my target was basically the hourly 50, and we're kind of halfway there, I just don't think I really want to hold our trade for this into the weekend, especially, 3-day weekend. It's one extra day for somebody to come out and spit some news. So yeah, that's kind of my plan. Let's see. Trump only speaking today at 6 p.m. Eastern. Okay, so that's later. That'll be market closed. So at least we'll have a better idea what to do by the end of today. All right. So that's what I'm looking at through here. Yeah, still looking for the hourly 50. We'll see if I'm going to be right about that. And as I said, maybe we kind of hedge our bets, because we can take half off before Powell speaks, and then we'll kind of see where we go today. It would be awesome if whatever Jerome Powell said now threw some cold water on the market came down, we cash in the rest of our call credit spread at the end of today, and then we'll be good. And because actually tomorrow, I'll be around tomorrow. I don't have any mic sessions, but I actually leave tomorrow evening for Houston for a friend's wedding. So I won't. This is great. Glad they planned it on a weekend, so I won't miss a day of trading. But I'm going to be kind of making sure I'm going light into the weekend. So we got that. And if you look at FNGA, this is the other thing that we've been trading, and we took half off of our position here yesterday. Same reason, because I could see that this thing was going to pull back, and I said, well, while I think the pullback is eventually going to be bullish, and I'd like to continue to ride this, well, if we are sharp enough, why not take half off here, let it pull back, and then we can add to it on the way back up? And so that's what we did. And so we actually bought here. Those of you out on the social medias, I don't think I've had the opportunity to tell you this, because I see a bunch of eyeballs over there. So good to see we have a bunch of people around here. This might be crazy or hard to believe, but we got the records to prove it. We actually, in the Moxie room and in the Central room, because that's where I put on a trade, we actually started buying the market. We put on a put credit spread for the SPX. We bought FNGA, and I was considering buying Tesla and some other things. We bought it Wednesday morning before Trump came out with the 90-day pause tariff news. Now, I know there's a lot of talk about insider trading with him, and look, of course there is. We're even seeing evidence that there was insider trading on that NVIDIA news, because there was a bunch of puts that got, you could see a volume spike in puts just before the NVIDIA news came out last night. So, look, there's always somebody that knows something, right? And that also demonstrates that the leaked news about a 90-day tariff pause on that Monday, which the White House had to walk back. Apparently, they knew this was already going to be happening. And that news apparently got leaked out. They had to walk it back, kind of put that cat back in the bag. And then we got a double bottom. And that was also the area where, remember, they were going to put more Chinese tariffs on at midnight. And so they put it on, and the market didn't go down. It actually double bottomed. And I thought, okay, the market's fine with this. It's not a problem. It's totally fine. It's baked in at this point. And so I looked at this and I said, look, the market's already down 20%. Also, I don't think it gets much worse than here before a bounce. And so I said, hey, let's start loading up on that Wednesday. And it was like within the first hour of the market. And then 2.5 later, Trump came out with the 90-day tariff pause, and boom, up this thing went. So we were already positioned. And so that's kind of where I'm like, all right, pretty cool. The technicals and the things we look at kind of worked well for that. While I have you guys here, let me mention that today is actually the last class of the series of 3 that we were doing for the Moxie indicator stuff. So we did the OG Moxie indicator stuff, then we did the 0 DTE trading education. And then today is going to be the ETF, leveraged ETF class. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter one, maybe a little over an hour, but I wanted to let you guys know that this is going to be the third and final class of this class series that we're doing. So those of you out on the social medias and stuff, if you guys want to come in and you can still buy the class. We have all the ones that we taught earlier. They're recorded. They're still part of the package. But you come over here to simplertrading.com/Moxie method, Moxie-method, and you can still sign up. So if you guys want to kind of come in here and get the last piece of the class, that's great. Or any kind of memberships that we have, since we're doing pretty well with this trading. We're getting all the twists and turns with this market so far. It's been working out pretty well. So yeah, come on over, guys. We got the last one today. And so that's part of why, given that this is FNGA, this is one of the leveraged ETFs, this is what I'm going to be talking about. And there are some reasons in through here and things that show up on the leverage ETFs that don't show up on the regular ETFs or don't show up in stocks. And they help give me some insight as to what's going on with the market. So yeah, we bought that on Wednesday, and then we took half off yesterday, and that was, how much was that? Like 27%. I mean, pretty nice, and that's where we took some half off, and now we're just waiting for the pullback. David, see, you're having problems getting the slides from the Moxie class. Reach out to our team. In fact, probably just messaging here. I'll make sure that Mirza or Omer sees this, and they'll make sure they help you out. So yeah, we want to make sure you guys got all the material that you need. But thanks for asking and letting us know that you had an issue. All right, so FNGA, and then if you look at SMH, you come over here, and this is the whole reason why we basically shorted the market and said, I think it's going to pull back, is we're right there, right to the hourly 50. Now, the fact that the SMH and NVIDIA and something like the FNGA have pretty much reached the hourly 50s, that's what I got to figure out is, are they going to be indicative of the rest of the market? Just because they reached the hourly 50s, hey, maybe the S&P is actually holding up a little bit stronger. Maybe it doesn't need to actually go to the hourly 50. Maybe it needs to be close, but maybe it doesn't need to go to it. Or the flip side, maybe these are going to go below the hourly 50 in order to get the S&P to the hourly 50. So this is kind of that moving target that I need to kind of figure out today. And I have a feeling it's going to be based on Jerome Powell and how the market reacts to that. So we got a couple hours that we can start to look at this and decide what it wants to do. But the market is definitely not bullish right now. We got a little bit of a bounce from this oversold drop that we had this morning, but it's not bullish yet. I'm looking for it. I think I want to be long next week, but that's kind of our situation. All right, and then if we look at the UVIX, this is another thing that I like to talk about. And so before I sign off with you guys on the social medias, you come over here, you can see that I put a mark right there. And that's where we started. I think we actually put on the call credit spread for the S&P. This was basically yesterday morning when we were in the Moxie room, and I said, hey, even the UVIX is looking pretty stretched to the downside. Looks to me like it wants to go higher. And if this is going to go higher, then that means the S&P is going to go lower. And that was spot on. So that's where we put on the trade. And you can see now we have the UVIX higher. Now the question is, how high does this go? In one world, I could see it just going to the hourly 21. And another, I could see it going to the hourly 50. So again, I think this has a lot to do with Jerome Powell probably speaking today and how the market feels about that. So before I sign off with you guys on the social medias, let's go back to the SPX because I want to show you a little bit more development on the lower time frames so that you can kind of see what I'm looking at and why. And if you look at the 5-minute, and you can see this is part of why we put on the trades yesterday. Notice how price got stuck and rejected by the 5-minute 50. Notice how even yesterday at the close, it got rejected by the 5-minute 50. And look where we are right now. Again, 5-minute 50 is proving to be resistance. So as I said this morning when I was just starting 20 minutes ago with you guys, I said, hey, and we got a little bit of a bounce. Let's see if it's just kind of fixing its oversold condition, get a bounce up into resistance, and let's see if we continue to roll over. So far, so good, because I do think the market should go lower. That's my personal opinion right now. We actually have a trade on based on that. So far, I think we're up around 20% on that call credit spread, and we'll have to make a decision about the next hour and a half with Powell and what's going on with that one. And then for those of you who are in the central room who were with me near the close yesterday, do you remember what we spoke about here on the 5 minute? How I said, hey, price is probably going to come down to the 200. It's going to act as support until it isn't. And so notice here how it came down, found support, came up into the 5 minute 50, ran into the 5 minute 50, and then closed down here. And that also, I think, from a technical perspective, helped explain the gap down today. And basically, the NVIDIA news just greased the wheels. So again, all the technicals totally lined up for all this. Market just needed an excuse to do what it's doing, and that was the NVIDIA stuff. All right. So before I let you guys go, I see those eyeballs keep growing over on YouTube, Facebook, and X. Remember, come over here, simplertrading.com/Moxie for the last installment of the Moxie class.